I'd like to welcome you to the celebration of this Mass. And like I did warn you before the Gospel, you're going to see Jesus behave in a way that is so unlike Jesus. We picture Jesus all the time coming into the temple with hands folded, really gentle, in a very prayerful mood, and just focus on spending time with God. This is the ideal picture of Jesus coming into the temple to pray. But today, we see something different. Jesus actually comes into the temple really mad. That's unlike Jesus, really mad. And instead of coming to the temple with folded hands, like we'll do when we come to church, we see Jesus come into the temple with a whip. And then he's yelling at people and overturning tables and throwing things all over the place. And then he opens his mouth and he says, "Get out of here." That's so unlike Jesus. What was it that could have gotten Jesus so mad? I can imagine Jesus when he was there overturning those tables and yelling, probably saying to them, "What has become of you? You guys no longer have respect for God? Where is your reverence gone? Are you out of your mind?" And what got Jesus so angry? Because they turned the temple into what it's not meant to be. What is the temple meant to be? A place to encounter God. And that's what a church is. It's a place to encounter God. It's a sacred space. But they were not treating it as a sacred space. And that got Jesus really mad. But then my question is, how did the people get to a point where they treated the temple like a marketplace? What happened? How did they get to that place where they could no longer see God in the temple and it just came in and it just looked like any gym or any auditorium? What happened? So we need to look at the background to their story, right? There are 3 times that Jews are expected to travel to Jerusalem. 3 times in a year. And one of those 3 times is the Feast of Passover. And then when you come in for the Passover feast, there are sacrifices that are expected of every Jew to make. And so you buy a goat, a dove, depending on your means, or a cow. But you're expected to buy all of these living animals for sacrifice with a shekel. So that's a Jewish money, right? That's a Jewish currency. But because the Jews were all over the world coming from different parts, so maybe there were those coming from, let's say, Australia or coming from Europe, they will come with the euro, they don't have the shekel. So what happens is you're not supposed to spend foreign money because Leviticus prescribes how these sacrifices were to be offered. And so they said, okay, we'll help you out of it. So we'll change the money for you so that you can have a Jewish shekel to spend. So something that set out to be out of good intention, but you know how it is. It's always, the devil always gets into it. He's very smart. And there was good intention behind it. But what happened over time? They forgot the reason, the intention behind it. And then it became just a normal bank that you just come change your money because it's so convenient. And probably it was cheaper. And so they forgot the purpose for it. But the deeper question is, how did they forget? How did they get to a point where they will come to the temple and all they can think about is just change their money because it's cheaper to do it here? And I hear that all the time. We come to church to build community. And I say, no. We come to church to encounter Jesus. And after we've encountered Jesus, we build community. This is not Tim Hortons or KFC. No. Right? But it's very easy. I come to church to meet with my friends, right? I come to church to build community. I come to church to find fellowship. No, you come to church to find fellowship with Jesus. And the consequence of fellowship with Jesus is then you have fellowship with others. They missed the mark. And why? They missed the mark exactly the reason why we do miss the mark today. They became too familiar with God. The beauty about God is because he's so kind and so loving, what does he do? He always brings himself low so that we can have access to him. The next few minutes, you're going to receive Jesus. He brings himself in all of his glory, and he picks one of the smallest things, a host, and he puts himself into it so that you can receive him. And then what's our attitude to that? Because it looks so ordinary, we tend not to believe that that's Jesus. That's the story of man. At the time of Jesus was the case too. They got so over familiarity, and so they could not feel the presence of the sacred. My question this morning is, would you say that we're guilty of the same thing? Maybe we're not. Maybe those Jews were just crazy people. How could they even do a thing like that? How could they get to a point where they don't recognize the sacred anymore? And then we judge them, right? Maybe we don't do that anymore. We're just smarter. We've read scriptures, so we know we shouldn't do that. But I have a few questions for you this morning that will help you know and help me know whether we are just as bad as those people. How do you know? When religious practices are born out of convenience, then you know you've turned God to a marketplace. And I'll explain that. A few years back, we got into the worst thing that can ever happen to humanity, called COVID. And we couldn't get together. And so we had to devise the means of having mass on TV, right? And that's all we could afford at the time. But we couldn't receive Jesus. I remember having to be in the parking lot, and people are coming with their cars, and they're receiving Jesus, because we were only allowed 10 people here, sadly, in the church. But we got used to it. And I even hear people say, I like it when we used to have mass on TV, because I just have my warm beverage with me in my PJs, and I sit on my favorite couch, and I watch Jesus. I watch mass. Convenience. And there are still some people, they are not back here for all kinds of reasons. They will go to cinemas, they go to everywhere else. They even go to watch the Riders. Thank God they won last night. I finally watched them and they won. So I broke the jinx. I watched and they won. So the jinx is broken, right? They can go to a Riders game, but when it comes to church on Sunday, it's just not safe. I don't feel comfortable around people because it's not convenient. And I hear people say something like, oh, the music in that church is not even good enough. I like to go to a place where the music is really good and the coffee is different. Well, we have Starbucks coffee here after Mass. I hope you know that. Yeah, the coffee is different. Yeah, or the Mass time just doesn't fit me, right? I wish Mass was 9 o'clock, then I would go to church. Or, they just have all these priests all over now that their accents are so different that we don't even understand them anymore. And so I just don't go to church. Convenience. Do you hear that? Is that creeping into your relationship with God? If it is, it's because the sacred has become the ordinary. Another way we see that is, and I see this in my own life. I have my prayer routine in the morning, and it's usually from my Hallow app. There are 3 things I picked in the morning, and it just starts playing at a certain time, and it plays all 3, and then I'm done for the morning. I have my routine in the afternoon, again from the Hallow app. I have my routine at night, again from the Hallow app. Ask me at the end of the routine in the morning if I heard anything or I paid attention. So even for those of us who pray every day, are we praying out of obligation? Or we're praying because it's our opportunity to encounter God? When was the last time you were praying the rosary? And I'm sure it happened today. And you didn't even know the mystery you were on. Oh, was it the 4th? Was it the 5th? And I hear this even from people. They say, my best time for planning my week is when I come to church. Because when I come, I have quiet. Then I can think of what I'm cooking for the week and the meetings that I have. I organize myself when I come to church. Right. Good job with that. Because you don't get any quiet. But is that the reason why we're here? So we're coming out of obligation. As Catholics, we got to go to church on Sunday. So I'm going so that I don't have to go to confession, right? But do I see it as my opportunity to meet Jesus and to encounter his love? Or, this is very common, church has become a service provider. I'm coming because they got a youth program in this church and they don't have a youth program in the other church. And I hear it all the time. Father, how come St. Anne's has this, St. Anne's has that, we don't have it in our church? And I'm going to talk about that at the end of my homily. The church is another Costco or another co-op. What can I get out of it? And I'm not saying what can I spiritually get, but what is the physical benefit for me belonging to that church? When we do that, the church has become a marketplace. We've lost the reason for it. Or the biggest one, and even as a priest, I'm as guilty as you are. Even though I'm the one carrying out the action in the name of Christ, I can't tell you how many times within a mass that I'm distracted. I have to bring my thoughts together to say, okay now, you before Jesus. So if I, carrying out the action, can get distracted, how much more of you? When was the last time you came to Mass and you actually can remember everything from the beginning to the end? Or you were watching your time to just wait for when Mass is over? If you answered yes to any of this, and I have answered yes to many, then we are just as bad as the people that Jesus was correcting in today's gospel reading. Did you listen to today's first reading? He talks about the benefits, what comes out of the sacred space, the altar. He says there is water that flows out of it that brings healing. So how come I've been coming to this church for 60 years, being a Catholic for 60 years, I've not received any healing from Jesus? The reason is very simple, because you're not open to it. You are here for the wrong reason. And thank you for showing up. But why not go to the next step? Why not make your time here count? Just make it count. And how do you make it count? Jesus wants to meet you. He knows this week you are going in is going to be a tough one and difficult one. And so he wants to begin the new week with you and just be there for you. It's actually for your own good. There is nothing that we do that benefits God. He's God, right? Everything we do for God, if we're going to use that, actually benefit ourselves. How about just making your time count? So what's the challenge before us this morning? The same challenge that is before me. What are the tables in your life that you need Jesus to turn over? Just shake things up a little bit. And those tables could be the tables of distraction when you're praying. And you know what I'm talking about. The devil is so smart. If he can't stop you from praying, he's going to make sure you don't focus on prayer. How hard it is. Even in, I have the privilege, thank God, and most of you don't, that I have a chapel in my house. So imagine that privilege. I sit there, and Jesus is just before me. Still, I'm distracted. It takes my thought all over the place, that I just spend time there and I get nothing out of it. So how about asking Jesus this week to just remove that, turn the table of distraction, so that the time you spend with him counts. And I don't care how long it is, even the 5 minutes. Do you know how much God can do in 5 minutes? Even in a minute. Do you know how much God can do in your life? You don't need half an hour. You don't even need an hour. A minute is a lot to God. That's like 1,000 years. He can do so much. But how about asking him to just turn that table of distraction, where every time you sit to pray, that's the time you sit to plan your week, right? Sometimes my adoration time is the time I plan my week. How about asking him to turn the tables of bad habits? So those habits that you have that keeps Jesus away from you or keeps you running away from Jesus. How about asking him to give you the grace this week to revive reverence? I love one, I'm going to come down now. I love one beautiful thing. Sorry, can you turn on the other mic, please? Okay. One of the beautiful things that we do in this church, and I love it. When I sit in the crying room there, hearing confessions, and I'm watching, right? I'm also distracted, right? I'm watching and I see people come in here, and it's so beautiful. And the first thing they do before they get into the pew is, wow. It just gladdens my heart. Why do we do that? To remind us that we are coming into a sacred space. What is the reverence in your life that you need Jesus to revive? Has it become so ordinary for you that you can't see him anymore? Just because he brought himself so low. And talking about the reverence that you need Jesus to revive, what about the reverence for this space? That every time you are coming here, you are actually looking forward to it because there is something in this space. And when I talk about Jesus helping you to revive the reverence for this space, I want to ask you a question. And I'm going to switch gears here. And I want to say something that you don't like to hear when you come to church. How about asking yourself the question, how much am I invested in this space? Can you take a look at your MasterCard statement, or whether it's a Visa statement, and there is Immaculate Heart of Mary in your financial planning? How can I say I love God, but it's not at the center of my finances? That's a good question. Because you want to know someone's priority, look at their bank statement. And I want to say to you, just so you know, can I have my slides up? As beautiful, you gotta make it bigger, guy. As beautiful as this church looks, it takes each of us to be emotionally, spiritually, financially invested in it to keep this beautiful church going. I just want to show you our contributions from 2020. You can see that there is not much difference. And it's not because our numbers have not grown, but because putting Jesus, for many people, at the center of my finances is not good stewardship. Next slide, please. I know that's difficult to read, but the next one. I'm going to take you to the next one. Okay. You see the red? You see the red graph on the red line there? That is our expenses. You see the green? That is our income. You see the difference? Look at the difference. If you are running a business and it's that way, what does that tell you? If you continue on this trajectory, that business is going to close down. I hate to say to you, if we continue this way financially, 5 years from now, you probably not have this parish. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. I hear people say, how come Father doesn't hear confessions before Mass on Sunday? I would love to, but guess what? I have to be in Langham. Why do I have to be in Langham? Because Langham gives us some of the money to keep this church open. Right? I'd love to be here full time so that we can have 2 masses on a Sunday. And then we can have confessions. We can have more adoration. But we can't. Because look at the disparity. Right? We just had youth program is beginning on Tuesday. And we see the good work that Phil is doing, right? But Phil doesn't go to Costco or Co-op for groceries, and he tells them, I work at Immaculate Heart of Mary Parish, and they give him for free. So we got to pay that guy. And if we continue like this, and I hear people say, I wish there are more programs, well, I just want you to know that we need to pay those who run those programs. I get angry emails sometimes saying, I have been sending emails to the parish, I got no response back, and I say, sorry, why you're getting no response is we have one person only in one day of the week, and the church is locked for the rest of the days. What does it take? It takes people to put Jesus in their finances. And I want to thank those who are doing that, because you're keeping these doors open. But there are many that have not prioritized Jesus in their finances. And I know you don't want to hear this, but I've got to tell you this. Because even I, as a priest, I had to put Jesus in my finances. You can't say you love someone and you can't give them a gift. It doesn't make sense. Oh yeah, he thinks Mass is over, this guy. He just, once he comes, it's treat he's thinking of, so he's wondering why Mass is not over. You gotta wait, we're not over yet. Okay, go to mom and then come back later, okay? Oh yeah, that doesn't work. Yeah, oh yeah. So I want to challenge you this morning. I've got 2 sheets of paper. One is for those who are already giving to the parish to please consider increasing your giving, maybe by $5 a week. And then the other one is those who are not visitors, but this is your parish now. You're giving every Sunday, just lose. You know what? Why not consider giving through pre-authorized giving? You know the beauty about that is then we can plan, right? The loose money we get, we can't plan because we don't know what we're going to get. So we can hire people, for example, because we don't know what we get. We can't plan. So what about moving your giving to pre-authorized giving? And if you're not giving at all, why? Is it because I'm treating this just like Costco? Or do I really love Jesus so much that I want what he loves most to grow? So I'd like to ask, Martin, is there anyone helping you? Okay. Okay. All right. Can you please go to the back? And if you're already giving and you want to consider increasing your giving, and just so you know, with pre-authorized giving, all it takes to stop it is an email or a text to Chantal. I'm struggling this month and I just lost my job. Please pause my giving, and we do that right away. So it's not carved in stone, right? Because the fear is, okay, how about next month I don't have enough? Yeah, no. If you don't, just please can I ask you to come quickly? I'm waiting for you. Guys, come. Come. And please, they are just waiting to, if you just put your hand up, either increase or sign up. Can someone go to the hall, please? And then they will give you the form. You're welcome to fill the form, leave it in the basket, or you want to take it home, take it